They handed me a curfew in an envelope. Yeah, an actual curfew, printed on thick paper with a gold crest, telling my family to be indoors by 7 every night. And what made it worse wasn't the pomp, it was the polite tone, like theft wrapped in ribbon. Let me back up a sec. My name is Jackson Gray, and when Sarah and I bought that tired gray house on the edge of Crescent Pines, we were chasing quiet, no HOA, no color police. Just a yard where the kids could yell, and the dog could run without a committee breathing down our necks. That was the whole point. 3 kids, a backyard grill. I worked long hours as an electrical engineer, loved a good project, and preferred my mailboxes uninspected. You know what I mean? The first 6 months were that odd, slow kind of settling. The polite glances, the passive-aggressive notes about lawn standards shoved under our gate, kids told to whisper on sidewalks. Then one Monday morning a contractor showed up uninvited with a measuring tape and a badge of assumed authority, claimed he'd been asked to survey our lot line. I showed him exactly where to shove his tape, friendly but firm, and for a while things went quiet. Suspiciously quiet. Then the letter came, no postage, Crescent Pines HOA crest across the top, and a directive that made my jaw drop. All non-certified residents are required to remain indoors after 1900 hours violations will be logged. I read it twice, then read it for Sarah, who blinked over her cereal like I'd handed her a prank. They want us locked in after 7, I said, half laughing, half hollow, like late-night curfew for adults. Mia, our oldest, asked if Lucky the dog could still get his walk. Lucky whined like he knew more than we did. We chalked it up to bold stupidity, until the white SUV rolled up the driveway at 7:15 p.m. that night, lights off, 2 men stepping out in tactical vests labeled Community Patrol, clipboard in hand like they were delivering subpoenas, not neighborhood friendliness. We need you to return to your residence, one said, as if I'd been given a role in their civic theater. I told them flatly I wasn't a member of their HOA, this was private property. The clipboard smiled like it was a sentence. When the guy reached for me, instinct took over. I twisted, he hit the bumper, the clipboard lunged, and then sirens like a bad dream going loud. I spent the night in a cell that smelled like bleach and bad coffee, kids peeping through curtains, Sarah pale and furious when they finally let me go at 4 in the morning with a citation taped to my keys. No apology, no explanation, just a quiet authority that left a bruise on my trust. That's when we called Joanna Martinez, our old zoning attorney friend, who showed up like a small hurricane in heels with a plan. They have no jurisdiction, she said, flipping open her tablet. You didn't sign their covenants, your parcel predates Crescent Pines by decades. This is unlawful detention. Hearing it from her made it feel solid, like the first true shot of daylight. You can't win against gossip and glow-in-the-dark authority without proof, so we started stacking it, camera placements, backup batteries for floodlights, emailed copies to Joanna, a formal complaint to the sheriff, and a public post of that ridiculous curfew letter that blew up the neighborhood Facebook page. Some folks laughed, some were outraged. A few said, maybe he's the problem. But most people were stunned that a homeowner's body would hand out curfews like a neighborhood curfew and expect obedience. Then the weird, ugly part, the annexation paperwork. Joanna pulled the HOA's boundary map for me and found our parcel shaded in green as pending annexation. 3 months earlier, someone had filed to extend Crescent Pines jurisdiction, and somehow my lot was suddenly included, without my knowledge, without county notification, and with someone's signature scrawled in a way that looked nothing like mine. I drove to the county assessor. An old clerk squinted and said the line on the plat had been literally redrawn by pen, not digitized, and the signed amendment carried the name of a planner who'd died last year. Annexed by a ghost. That's when things turned from petty to criminal. Joanna booked an emergency county hearing. I bolstered our security, and we called in Leon Vargas, an ex-military IT guy who owed me a favor and showed up with a backpack full of gear and a look like he'd seen worse. He started pulling logs, checking cameras, tracing IPs, and what he found made my skin crawl. Someone tried to access our network twice the night I was cuffed. The IP traced back to the Crescent Pines Administrative Center. Then he recovered our driveway camera footage, low quality, grainy, but there I was calm, walking toward my car, one of the community patrol guys grabbing my jacket first. In the footage, a blonde woman stood half hidden by the bushes, radio in hand, a voice Leon cleaned up enough to make out. He's resisting, get ready. It was Karen. For the first time it landed like a sledgehammer. This wasn't a neighborhood dispute, it was staged escalation. Noah, Another college friend turned real estate attorney found something else. The HOA's marketing was using images of our yard, our mailbox, even the gazebo near our property, calling it a Vista Hill Pavilion, on listings for houses they were selling my land's charm without my permission. They were building a brand on someone else's back 40, and they'd tried to formalize it with forged signed documents and doctored meeting minutes. So we countered. We filed a cease and desist to scrub their ads. Joanna filed an injunction. Leon handed the sheriff the recovered footage, and Noah subpoenaed HOA minutes. The community, once comfortably numb to the HOA's polite dominion, started to wobble. One neighbor brought me a leaked thread where Karen had written, "Don't worry, he'll cave once he sees we're organized." And another handed over a printout where an executive vote showed approval for development interfacing with our parcel, except the vote included a fifth signature that didn't exist. They'd faked a quorum. The middle act had its sad, ugly theatrics, tires slashed outside the barn, anonymous laminated warnings taped to our mailbox, a suited acquisition man from the developer offering to buy our house at 120% of market as a favor. I didn't sell. I shut the door in his face, and Joanna filed harassment. The more they pulled, the more we pushed back. Neighbors who'd been on the fence started bringing brownies, other residents leaked board emails, and a class action against the HOA started to take shape. By the time the county deputies came with a search warrant, the HOA office looked smaller than their glossy brochure. Hard drives, ledgers, payments to shell companies, emails referencing demolition prep and demobilize after arrest, payments routed to P.O. boxes, shell vendors with no licenses. Leon had traced transfers into a Nevada trust under Karen's maiden name. Fraud, conspiracy, embezzlement, the words stacked like indictments. Arresting her wasn't cinematic, no handcuffs on the lawn or dramatic news chases. Deputies picked her up at a spa, robe and cucumber mask, booked her on multiple counts: fraudulent zoning authority, conspiracy to obtain property under false pretenses, filing false municipal documents, and embezzlement. The news called it gated coup, and the internet had a field day. I hated the headlines calling me the dad who dared, but the support poured in from strangers who'd fought their own Karens in other towns. Court became routine: depositions, grand jury testimony, a preliminary injunction that barred Crescent Pines from advertising or claiming any use of our land. The judge said something I'll never forget. "This is civil tyranny disguised as neighborhood governance," and it landed like a verdict before the verdict. Karen's bail was denied, and the HOA was frozen, its accounts locked, its board imploding as more members resigned or went public with apologies. One retired dentist even held a press conference admitting he'd been misled. Victory on paper felt clean and cold. Fines levied, accounts audited, the county formally rezoning my property as protected residential outside any HOA reach. But the real satisfaction came in small things: rebuilding the mailbox gate, replacing the motion camera Leon had mounted, watching Mia run across the lawn without checking over her shoulder. We founded a little nonprofit, Beyond the Gate, with funds from people who wanted to help others fight unfair HOAs, legal resources, tech help, volunteers across states. It felt like turning an ugly story into something that might save a neighbor down the road. The cinematic moment, the one that makes you breathe out, wasn't the headlines or the guilty pleas. It was the morning I walked the yard alone after the office had been padlocked, the sun cutting across the grass, no tents, no patrols. Just the kids laughing in the distance, and the plaque I mounted on the gate that reads, "This land is free, no curfew, no permission." I put it up for me, but it was for Sarah and the kids too, a little piece of defiance and peace. And yet, I'll leave you with the question that keeps me up sometimes. When a group says community and slides a folded paper across the table, who gets to define that word? The folks with glossy brochures and lawyers, or the families whose lives have built that land? When does "for the common good" become a cudgel for private gain? And how do you spot it before they plant a tent on your lawn? If you've ever been bullied by rules, an HOA, a landlord, a committee that talked like neighbors but acted like a board of directors, tell me what you did. Would you have acted differently? Did you fight or fold? Drop your story in the comments. Share how you define justice in a neighborhood. And if this resonated, share this with someone who's been told to just follow the rules. Sometimes rules are the problem, and sometimes they're the only thing that saves us.